The dark truth behind the disappearance that shocked the world. True crime documentary. The dark truth behind the disappearance that shocked the world, a mystery that left investigators searching for answers and a family trapped in endless heartbreak. Imagine leaving your home one evening, stepping into the quiet night, and never being seen again. No struggle, no goodbye message, no trace, just silence and a disappearance that would shock the world. It began on what seemed like a completely normal evening. There were no warning signs, no indication that something was about to go terribly wrong. Friends say the victim was in good spirits and making plans for the days ahead. To everyone around them, life seemed perfectly normal. That night, they stepped outside for what should have been a routine outing. But that simple walk would become the last confirmed sighting. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Hours passed, and the night grew darker. When the victim didn't return home, concern slowly turned into fear. Calls went unanswered. Messages were left, but there was still no reply. It was as if the victim had simply vanished into the night. By morning, worry had turned into panic. The family made the call no one ever wants to make. A missing person report was filed, and the investigation had officially begun. Within hours, investigators arrived to begin the search for answers. Every inch of the area was carefully examined for clues. Officers searched nearby streets, parks, and buildings. Detectives began analyzing hours of security camera footage. One camera captured the victim walking alone late that night. It would become the last confirmed sighting. After that moment, the trail suddenly went cold. Investigators began piecing together the victim's final movements. Neighbors and witnesses were questioned, but no one reported seeing anything unusual. Investigators also examined phone records and recent messages. Every lead was tracked, every possibility explored. Search teams expanded the investigation far beyond the neighborhood, but the more they searched, the more mysterious the case became. And investigators were left asking one troubling question: what really happened that night? As the days passed, the investigation began revealing strange details. Some clues didn't seem important at first, but together they painted a troubling picture. Detectives began connecting the pieces of the puzzle. Friends and acquaintances were questioned again. That's when investigators heard something unexpected. The victim had recently mentioned feeling uneasy, as if someone had been watching them. At the time, it sounded like a simple fear, but the victim's phone records revealed something unusual. There were several calls from a number investigators didn't recognize. One message sounded tense, almost urgent. The timeline of the victim's final hours began to change. Security cameras also captured something strange. A car appeared near the area around the same time the victim vanished. Investigators quickly focused on the vehicle. Its license plate became a critical clue. The car was registered to someone surprisingly close to the victim. Suddenly, the case took a dramatic turn. Detectives began looking into someone from the victim's inner circle, someone who had been near the victim shortly before the disappearance. During questioning, their story didn't fully add up. Details started to contradict earlier statements. So detectives returned to the evidence, and what they noticed raised even more questions. Authorities obtained permission to search the vehicle. Inside, they found something that could not be ignored. The discovery changed everything. For investigators, the pieces were starting to fall into place. The timeline now pointed toward a darker possibility. This disappearance might not have been random. It could have been carefully planned. Investigators now believed someone knew more than they were saying, but proving it would take time. Meanwhile, the victim was still missing, and the truth behind the disappearance was finally beginning to surface. After weeks of investigation, the truth slowly began to emerge. What investigators discovered would shock everyone involved. This disappearance was far from random, and the answers were closer than anyone expected. The clues had been there all along. The mysterious car had become the center of the investigation. Its owner quickly became a person of interest. Investigators decided it was time to take a closer look. The suspect was brought in for questioning. Inside the interrogation room, the tension was heavy. At first, the suspect denied any involvement, but investigators had gathered powerful evidence. The pressure was building. Every detail of that night was carefully reconstructed, and slowly the story began to change. Phone records placed the suspect near the scene. Security cameras confirmed the vehicle's location. Investigators also uncovered physical evidence. At that moment, the case took a chilling turn. The truth could no longer be hidden. Hours of questioning continued. But the suspect's story kept changing. The evidence continued to grow. Investigators knew they were getting closer. And finally, the silence spoke volumes. The suspect realized the truth was unavoidable. One final question changed everything. And then the confession began. A shocking story started to unfold, one that no one expected. Investigators reconstructed the events of that night. It started with a chance encounter, an encounter that quickly escalated. What happened next changed everything. A tragic chain of events unfolded. The motive slowly became clear. Someone close to the victim had been hiding secrets. Secrets that investigators finally uncovered. The search expanded beyond the city, hoping to find answers. Then investigators made a heartbreaking discovery, one that confirmed their worst fears. The disappearance had ended in tragedy. Authorities began preparing their final report. Justice would now take its course. The suspect was formally charged. The case quickly captured global attention. People everywhere followed the shocking story. But for the family, the pain was unimaginable. They had finally received the truth. Memories became their greatest comfort. Life would never be the same again. For investigators, the mystery was finally solved. But the story left a lasting impact, a reminder of how quickly life can change, the place where it all began, and where the truth was finally uncovered. Another case, but one they would never forget. Justice had been served, but the loss remained. The victim's memory would live on, and the community stood together. The world had watched the story unfold. A mystery that once seemed impossible to solve finally revealed its dark truth, but questions still lingered. Could this tragedy have been prevented? Some mysteries leave scars long after they are solved, and some stories are never forgotten, because behind every case is a human life, a life taken too soon, a reminder that truth always finds its way to the surface, even in the darkest mysteries. The truth eventually comes to light, and this was the dark truth behind the disappearance that shocked the world. Cases like this remind us that sometimes the people closest to us may hide the darkest secrets. But many disappearances around the world remain unsolved, leaving families still searching for answers. If you found this story shocking, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more true crime documentaries every week. And tell us in the comments section. Or do you think the truth was discovered too late? Or is there still more to this mystery? Because sometimes the real story is darker than anyone imagined.